The emperor addressed a girl named Errol Frey Brixia, accusing her of committing the unpardonable crimes of allying with the enemy and illegally acquiring military weapons. He asked if she would admit her guilt, called her a despicable traitor, and said the evidence was against her. The people around her called her a vile monster, said she sold her own family to the devil. They asked for the duchess to be executed. The girl thought it was the end. She had once been a member of Duke Brixia's family, but she had no name. The Duke's bastard child, the Duchess in disguise, and also a cursed monster. That's what they called her. People looked at her with disgust. Her eyes were as scarlet as blood. Even her own father didn't recognize her as his daughter, calling her a brat. He forbade her to show her face to anyone. She wanted to be loved, to be recognized, so she studied hard. She was convinced she would be loved. And it paid off. She was finally part of the family. Her father felt she could be of use to him. The Duchess told the Emperor he was wrong, that she had committed no crime. Everyone here thinks she's a monster because she was born with that spot on her face. No one here cares about the truth. She asked if the Emperor was happy, said he'd won, and her nasty dark side of her soul is out in the open for all to see. Or he's afraid of what she might say. At that moment, she was stabbed in the back with a sword. Even her own death is not her choice. How ridiculous. She wished for His Majesty the Emperor and her father, Duke Alden, whom she once loved, to choke on the rot of their greed and helplessness. Duke Brixia asked the Emperor not to take her words seriously, saying that she was just talking utter nonsense on death's doorstep. Shevin Rudin was her only friend. He told her that she too could find her place in this world. He gave her a ring to protect her, told her to remember that light and hope were always with her. At the moment of her death, she thought he was wrong. How could a monster like her find a place in this world? She is nothing to them. There was a woman's voice trying to wake up Mistress Errol. Wait, she's alive. A woman's voice asked her to put this on quickly, because Mr. Belfort was arriving today and the Duke would be angry if she was late. It was Nanny Errol. But after all, her nanny was no longer alive, and why was she alive? The woman's voice kept saying they didn't have much time and needed to hurry. Her room, the nanny who died 4 years ago, also Mr. Belfort's visit. What does that mean? The Duchess said she might not be able to leave her bed tonight. Nanny began to worry, for she knows the Duke's temper. The Duchess told her not to worry, and that she would talk to him. Errol said she just wanted to get some rest. The nanny told the mistress not to overdo it. And just like that, she was back in her hated past. She still can't tell if she's asleep or awake, but the moment of her death she remembers even too vividly. The dim memories in the moment before her death, the curse words she said, and the deep hatred and seething rage. And now she was back in the past. Did she really possess some cursed powers? The birthmark was gone. What's going on? Could be some kind of potion or magic. Birthmarks don't just disappear on their own. Shevin's ring is gone too. She always wore it as a talisman. Maybe someone took it from her before she died. There was a scream from her father. He asked what she was doing here, since Mr. Belfort was about to arrive. The girl replied that she was not feeling well. Her father told her that it was amazing that a monster like her could feel pain. Errol told him that she was still human. The Duke replied that he doesn't have time to listen to her ramblings. She knows he can't stand it. Hearing her father's harsh words, the girl concluded that this was not a dream. Her father kept saying that this project is extremely important and they need to prepare properly. If they succeed, he would consider taking her to the ball. The Duchess replied that she would be ready. The moment she heard Alden's words, when she went back in time, she made sure she was given a chance that opened the eyes of the naive Errol Frey Brixia. Let her father wait, and she would give him everything he so desired. She clearly remembers the day Duke Alden first took her to the ball. He said that Errol could go if she did her job properly, telling her to prepare carefully. The excited girl promised to do her best. The man sitting across from her father asked if the Duke really wanted to take this monster to the ball, to which Alden replied that he didn't mean it. He said that everything would be perfect, and his daughter would be a useful tool for him. The interlocutor said that Alden is indeed a terrible father. Well done. What can I say? The Duke suggested that the interlocutor take her for himself and raise her on his own, to which the man fearfully replied that he was afraid of being cursed by her, said he would never go near her. Alden said he would take Errol to the ball in person. He needed to show her to the world. She had no idea that the ball she had always dreamed of would be her worst nightmare. People around her were screaming like animals about how horrible the scar on her face was. She had been too naive to believe that he would recognize it. However, nothing would hurt her now. She would rip off his false mask and show everyone how pathetic he was. She is no longer afraid of him. Her father told Errol that she was late. The girl apologized, saying she wasn't feeling well. Belfer Blyden was the captain of the Imperial Guard. He rejoiced at the Duchess's arrival and asked how she was feeling. He insisted on not disturbing her, but the Duke decided her presence was necessary. The girl replied that she was fine and offered to begin. Belfort suggested getting straight to the point. The situation is serious. We need to approach the matter responsibly. There is some problem with the military shoes they supply. They get wet easily. It's also dangerous to train in them in winter because of the risk of frostbite. He would like the Duke to take care of this. Father stated that no problems were found during the production stage. It must be all due to improper storage. The captain replied that the Imperial Guards handled the shoes properly. In addition, the shoes do allow moisture to pass through. That fact cannot be ignored. If it is the manufacturing process that is the problem, the Imperial Guard demands compensation from the Duke. The Duke was shocked by the claim. He started to get indignant and said that there was nothing wrong with the production. Belfer stated that they would have to recheck all weapons and shields. Errol remembered that the Duke uses cheap materials for manufacturing to save money. As a result, the end products are defective. This applied to her shoes as well. Back then, she blamed it on the warlord and made excuses for Duke Brixia. But now she realizes that he is simply incompetent and greedy for money. The girl asked to be forgiven for not being able to concentrate on the conversation. She said she had listened and apologized again. The father asked in amazement how dare she do that to him. Belfer noted that she still didn't seem to be feeling any better and told her to go back to bed and get some rest. It was her father's fault for what had happened. Let him deal with the problem himself. There was nothing she could do about it anyway. She didn't care if her family went bankrupt. Some male voice called out to her from behind, ordering her to stop and calling her a monster. It was the eldest son of the Brixia family, Brixius Brixia. He asked if her father had already let her go. She answered in the affirmative, saying she didn't feel well. He continued by asking if she had any idea what it was like to live with such a monster under one roof. It's the same, but she doesn't care anymore. She told him she was human. He asked if a freak like her could call herself human. Brixtus Brixia is as much of a disappointment as his father. Being the eldest son, he became the most vile. He has bullied her since she was a child, humiliated her, ripped off her mask. But she wouldn't let him do that to her now. The boy tried once again to take off her mask. The girl brushed his hand away and told him to fuck off. Brixtus was shocked by such actions of his sister. Belford departed later than she had anticipated. She thought her father had managed to find an excuse for himself. But nothing. It was only temporary. Her father burst into the room, calling the girl a vile creature. He asked if she realized the losses they would suffer because of her. Errol asked in surprise if it was her fault. Her father objected, saying that she was the one who had gotten sick. Though maybe animals get hurt sometimes too. He continued to yell, not understanding how she dared to leave. She had to deal with Belfort at any cost. He thought she was still the same. Errol asked what he told Mr. Belfort. Father replied that the captain said there was a misunderstanding. Belfort did believe that the problem was with the production itself. The Duke blamed it on his daughter and told him to deal with it. How ridiculous. He decided to blame it on her, because she designed them. How dare he blame it on her? It's too much. The Duke said Belfort must be at the meeting and she's going there. It's her only chance. Otherwise, she will never get to the ball ever. Belfort was surprised that the Duchess wanted to talk to him. I wonder why. Had the Duke not told him everything? From behind him came the voice of Errol. She apologized for being late, saying she had urgent business. The captain asked if she was feeling better and suggested that she go to a secluded place. The girl objected and said she would rather tell him everything right now. The girl began by saying that she was not going to apologize for her project. She believed that they had come across the sketches during the investigation. Belford confirmed it. The girl asked what the captain thought of them and if there was a connection between her father's claims and her sketches. The captain considered the possibility that the problem might indeed be storage. To this, the girl replied that the shoes had been made less than a year ago. It couldn't have deteriorated that much in that time. It doesn't make any sense. which means it's about the storage line. The guy asked what she was getting at. Errol replied that it's simple. The materials have really started to decay, and it might be worth questioning the warlord. Belfort asked if it was speculation or if she really knew something. The girl replied that it depended on what he believed. Belfort doesn't care about the people around him, but he is an honest man. She gave him a clue. It's all in his hands now. The girl approached the captain and said she believed in him. Errol left, promising to cook some goodies for him next time. The commander asked Belfort if the Duchess had really said that, to which the other replied in the affirmative. The captain asked what he should do, to which the commander replied that there was reason in her words and ordered to start an investigation. He would very much like to see this Duchess in person. The Duchess asked if the father had explained everything to Mr. Belfort, to which he replied that the captain had understood everything. The father said that their family could have been in prison if Belfort had revealed the truth and forbade his daughter to be rude to him. Then he told her to leave. It's clear as day that Alden didn't tell Belfort everything. Bastard. He has no idea what she told Belfort. The armed forces play a huge role in the structure of the Ottoman Empire. Even though it's peaceful now, 30 years ago there were wars one after another, mostly on the borders of the empire. Osland wanted the vast fertile lands of Dai Savan, and Dai Savan needed the rich mines of Osland. It's been a long time, but the Cold War continues. They still want to get their hands on other people's wealth. The Osland Empire invested half of its treasury in the army. However, even that wasn't enough. The Brixia family was one of the first to invest in the war. That's why the Duke still gets away with so much, even when it comes to military corruption. Otherwise, the entire Brixia family would have been executed long ago. She needs to protect herself. How she managed to go back in time. Magic. A miracle. The ring and the birthmark are gone. Could it be that her friend knows the answer? What kind of life she should live? A voice came from behind her. It was the third Duchess of the Brixia family, Arturina Brixia. The younger sister asked what Errol was doing here, to which the other replied that she was talking to her father. Arturina demanded to tell her everything. Errol didn't understand why she asked it every time if she didn't understand anything. But she continued nonetheless, telling her that they had discussed the basic costs of all the equipment supplied to the Central Army, as well as the rates of permanent units of ore extracted from the mines in the future, most likely to prove to be key factors in settling the prices of military equipment. In addition, they discussed ways to transfer technology, ways to reduce added tariffs, and intellectual property rights. Arturina said that was enough and handed her sister the papers with her estimates. The girl said that her grades were low again and she would be expelled, for which her older sister would get the blame. The younger sister began to sneer, saying she could help Errol by getting a higher grade. But it was only a mockery, because the girl was not going to do anything to help her sister. Since the prom was coming up, she didn't plan to waste time on such nonsense as studying. The best thing for her to do was to find a suitable dress, because she wanted to shine at the ball. Arturina advised her older sister to prepare herself and start by correcting her grades. The girl made a happy grimace and left. Errol thought her sister was acting exactly like Alden. Errol wasn't going to do that. She summoned a maid and told her to take the papers with the bad grades to the Duchess. She would probably be thrilled. The nanny told Mistress Errol that the Duchess had scolded Arturina. She is now under house arrest until she improves her grades. She cried a lot because she couldn't get ready for the ball. Errol asked how Opera's nanny was doing. She was supposed to be given a week's vacation, and the girl asked what she planned to do. The nanny answered that she wanted to go to her hometown, to see her homeland and her family. After all, it had been 5 years. Errol asked what Nanny would do if she didn't go to Bali. Opera replied that she would then stay with the mistress. The Duchess objected, saying that the nanny should see the family, but Opera added that it was not necessary and that she would rather stay here than watch the children roar because they had broken a tooth while eating. The girl reflected on the fact that in her hard times, Opera had always been the one to give her warmth. She doesn't have much time. In a year's time, she will die of the disease, maybe even sooner. If she stays here with her, she won't see her family again. But Errol was so scared. She exhaled and asked Nanny to get her dress ready, for she was giving Oprah a week's vacation to see her family while she was at the ball. Her father's voice was heard telling Cheryl to take off her mask. The girl asked for him to stop. Alden replied that he wanted everyone to admire her beauty. The man ripped off the girl's mask. He asked everyone to look at his beauty. The Duke asked if she was beautiful. The people around him yelled that Errol was a monster. How horrible her birthmark and devilish eyes looked. The girl sat on the floor and sobbed. The nanny came up behind her. Errol begged the nanny to help her and get her out of here. The opera lifted the girl's face, looked at her, and told Errol that she was disgusting. The nanny asked her how she could ever be so ugly. With disgust on her face, Opera wished the girl dead. She ran her sharp fingernails across her face, thus killing the girl. Errol woke up terrified. It was only a dream. Why was she even having it in the first place? It wasn't surprising, though. She returned to the Imperial Palace, an imperial ball to honor the founding of the empire held every 3 years. A special ball held after the prince comes of age. Many nobles and guests from other countries come to the Imperial Palace. The ceremony lasts all day. The great nobles of the Ausland Empire, the Brixia family, were invited to the Holy of Holies of the Imperial Palace to pay homage to their position among the nobility. Errol had come for the ceremony as well, but she asked for the furthest room so she wouldn't run into anyone. She really wants to go unnoticed and secretly prepare for the destruction of the Brixia family. From behind the door came a scream from her younger sister. She burst into the room and asked how Errol dared to show her mom the school report. The girl was outraged that this time her older sister didn't listen to her. Arturina said that Errol had no idea how much she had suffered because of her. The girl didn't even have time to find a suitable dress. Arturina said that a brat like Errol was allowed to get an education, but she didn't deserve it. The girl kept saying that Errol wasn't one of them. Arturina said that she felt sorry for her sister and personally asked her father to take her to the ball, to which Errol replied that she needed to fulfill her duties. But Arturina was the legitimate daughter of the Brixia family, and couldn't she handle simple housework? Errol said that she was beginning to question if she was even a legitimate daughter. Arturina raised her hand at her, yelling, asking how dare she say that. Errol stopped her hand. The older sister told Arturina to leave. The younger sister started screaming, saying she would tell her father everything. The influx of cash is obvious, the question is how to use it. There's a key event in the future. If she remembers correctly, Brixia uses her authority to auction off her military equipment business. However, if the Duke's machinations come to light, Brixia will lose her credibility and the auction will fail. If she manages to seize this moment, she can strike a serious blow. It may be the perfect opportunity for her revenge. Let's make it work. There was a knock on the door. The girl asked who was there. It was Belfort. Errol went to the door in surprise. The captain was glad to see her. He said that thanks to her, everything was all right. Belfort introduced his commander to the Duchess, who introduced himself as Ethan Lloyd Balstein. He apologized for showing up uninvited as he had important business to attend to. He invited the lady for a conversation. Ethan Lloyd Balstein, the next head of the Balstein family of swordsmen. Rumor has it that Ethan is the best of the best, supposedly hasn't let the sword out of his hands since he was a child. He rarely shows up to these events. He's also turned down countless engagement proposals, and thanks to his skill, he quickly rose through the ranks to commander of the Imperial Guards. As a man, he's quite unusual. The commander said that following the advice of the Duchess, they managed to arrest the corrupt military commander by giving her a report. The girl said she was glad she could help, but expressed her suspicions that they had not come to inform her. She said she believed there was something else. The commander replied that during the interrogation, the officer testified against Duke Alden. And as you know, war crimes are strictly punishable in the Ausland Empire. The law is the same for everyone, even the family in Brixia. If this gets out, they won't escape prosecution. If they're lucky, they'll get off with a small fine. At worst, they'll lose the duchy and their entire family will be put behind bars. The commander informed her that she would not escape punishment either. Ethan said he was grateful for her help. However, he had to act in accordance with the law. Still, there is something he can do. During the trial, he could petition for extenuating circumstances. The girl objected and said he shouldn't. It's not necessary. And asked the commander to proceed according to the law. She said she doesn't care, and moreover, she doesn't think it will affect her, because I had no problems with her initial projects. Everything went smoothly in the initial stages, and in the production process too. In fact, the workers were even surprised by such detailed materials. The commander asked if the drawings presented later were not made by the Duchess, to which she replied in the negative. She said that the Duke had simply put her name on them. The commander said there was something he wanted to ask the Duchess, something he was genuinely curious about. He asked why she was wearing her mask. Belford apologized for the commander's improper question, but the girl replied that there was a mark on her face from birth. It was ugly, so she wore the mask to hide it. Errol asked if she had satisfied the commander's curiosity. Belford apologized once more for his commander, and they left the girl. Errol concluded that Ethan was kind of weird. It was surprising that he was unaware of the rumors hovering around her. It was the first time she had been asked about the mask without malice or pity. And this man is the commander of the Imperial Guards. Errol couldn't concentrate. She didn't understand why she kept thinking about the commander, why he had to ask about the mask. Was he really out of curiosity? His gaze, he wasn't just looking at her appearance, he was looking much deeper than that. A servant girl's voice was heard outside the door, asking if she could come in. She informed him that the Duke was looking for his mistress. The Duchess assumed that her father was in the banquet hall and should have told him that she was not coming. The maid continued that the Duke had said that if the young mistress didn't show up, he would cut off her leg. The girl fell to her knees and began to beg that she would appear at the banquet. The maid cried and spoke of having brothers and sisters. If she couldn't work, she wouldn't be able to provide for her family. Errol jumped up and down in a rage. Meanwhile, Alden's not longtime interlocutor was asking what the Duke wanted to show everyone, rushing him at that. At this time, Errol entered the hall. She said that she heard her father was looking for her. The Duke replied that he was worried that she was nowhere to be found. He asked if she had decided not to come because of her mark. He said that he was saddened that his dear daughter couldn't show up to the ball because of some nonsense. So he wanted to help her. He has found a solution. If you take off the mask, sooner or later everyone will get used to it. He said this is her chance to show everyone her unearthly beauty. The girl thought about the fact that he took her to the ball just to embarrass her. She replied to her father that it was not necessary. What was the point of showing everyone her face? She had told him from the beginning that she had no intention of attending the ball. That wasn't why she was here. The Duke asked what Errol was here for then, to which she replied that she was wondering what he had brought her here for. Was it to mock his own daughter? The girl turned around and said she was leaving. The Duke called her an arrogant bitch. He asked how dare she disobey her father. Why is it so hard to take off that damn mask? Her father told her to take it off now. He said if she couldn't do it herself, let him help her. His hand reached for her face. A thought flashed through the girl's mind that she didn't want it to happen again, so she pushed her father away. The Duke asked how dare she do that to him. The girl accidentally hooked herself over someone's leg and fell. The mask flew off her face. Her father said that she should have listened to him instead of making a fuss over such shenanigans. She was a disgrace to their family. No one must know that the stain is gone. In the name of Brixia's destruction, it must remain a secret. It's still early. At that moment, Ethan walked up to her. He picked up her mask from the floor and asked if she was okay. The girl replied that she was fine and thanked him for his concern. Her father was surprised by Ethan's action. He started yelling that even though the boy was the future head of the Bellsteins, he had no right to interfere in his family's affairs. It was unforgivable. During this commotion, the crown prince of the Osland Empire, Estian Yolgert Osland, entered the hall. He said he couldn't believe they were having fun here without him. Anyone who saw it would think it was a banquet thrown by Brixia. And such events are supposed to make everyone happy. However, from the looks of it, only the Duke is having fun. Kronprint looked at Alden unhappily. The Duke agreed and apologized for his disrespect. Estian said he was glad the Duke realized things so quickly. The commander asked if Lady Errol was all right and offered her his hand to get up. The people around them were talking about the girl hiding her face for a reason. The rumors must be true, so she wasn't called a monster princess for nothing. They were saying that she's a monster, a cursed woman, a devil, that she had devilish eyes. The commander jumped to his feet and shut everyone's mouths with one word. He reminded them that this was a ball thrown by the Imperial family, and each of them had been given the right to enter the sacred Imperial palace. If they allowed themselves to continue with this farce, he would consider it an insult to the Imperial family. He would not allow such a thing to happen, swearing on the name of Ethan Lloyd Belstein. The girl didn't understand why the commander was helping her. The Duchess and the commander left the ball. Ethan asked if the girl was all right. Perhaps it was worth calling a doctor. Errol replied that she was fine and it was not certain that the doctor would treat her at all. She said she was used to it. She thanked the commander and said that thanks to his support, everything ended up relatively okay. A lot of people don't even approach her, let alone touch her like her father. In any case, she is grateful to Mr. Ethan. The girl said she would return to her chambers and the commander could go. The boy apologized, dropped to his knees, and took her ankle in his hands. Errol asked what he was doing, to which Ethan replied that it was first aid for an ankle injury. No one but her nanny had shown her any kindness since she was a little girl. No matter how badly she suffered, she could not dream of proper treatment. She was only laughed at and humiliated more. She decided to go through it all alone, without anyone's help. At that time, Ethan had already finished dressing her. The girl asked not to be called lady, but to be addressed by her first name. At this time, the Crown Prince entered the room. He said that he could see that the commander and the Duchess were getting along. The boy asked if Errol was okay. The commander asked what brought Estion here, to which the other replied that he wanted to check something out. More specifically, he wanted to see Lady Errol. He said that her name had been mentioned a lot lately, and he believed that she knew what the reason was. The girl replied that it was probably about the machinations of military equipment. The Crown Prince said that as everyone knows, the Ausland Empire signed a peace treaty with DEI Savan. Because of the war, a good portion of their income went to support the army. At the moment, their financial situation wasn't the best. And on top of all this, the Brixia family, being one of the most important suppliers of military equipment, has been accused of machinations. Rumors are irrelevant. Without hard evidence, it would be extremely difficult to prove the Duke's guilt. But suddenly, the youngest daughter of the ducal house, Brixia, suddenly tipped off against her own father, and demanding to be punished according to the law. That's why he came. She intrigued him. He regrets what happened at the ball. He thought the Duke was a decent man, but his stupidity exceeded the Crown Prince's expectations. He never would have thought the Duke would do such a thing in front of so many people. He was glad Ethan had stepped in for Errol in time. Besides, he had no idea of their deep relationship with the commander of the Imperial Guards. The Crown Prince had said he was aware that banquets and social events were not the commander's path. However, he skillfully handled the situation. Ethan replied that he only wanted to help Lady Errol as an apology for what had happened this morning. The Crown Prince asked what had happened this morning, to which the girl replied that the commander had asked her about her mask. Estion apologized for Ethan, calling him not too bright, and told the story of how the commander had asked why his hair was gray when they were children. Errol replied that it was okay, and she had already received an apology. She said that she thought that Mr. Ethan asked it out of pure curiosity, and she didn't think the question was rude at all. She continued that he was the first to ask the reason, and the reason is simple. People are afraid of her face, so she hides it. The girl turned to the commander and asked if there was any other reason, to which the guy replied that the reason was her eyes, her strong and confident gaze. That's what he saw. A look that looked forward. He said she wasn't intimidated by the prospect of revealing her family's full background, and so he wondered what made such a brave woman wear a mask. You could see in her eyes that her shortcomings didn't affect her ambition in the slightest. The girl thought about the fact that this was the first time she had heard something like this. She replied that everyone thinks her eyes are cursed. Doesn't the commander get scared by that? To which the boy replied in the negative. The Crown Prince supported Ethan by saying that he thinks her eyes are beautiful too. And aren't her eyes one of a kind? They will enchant anyone. He continued that he honestly doesn't understand why they call her a monster. In his eyes, she is beautiful. A rare beauty. Doesn't that mean she's special? The same can be said for royalty. Not everyone can be born with it. That's what makes a person special. Like him, the Crown Prince of the Ausland Empire. Of course there are those who envy him and his position. However, doesn't that make him even more special? Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. And that is why there is no need to wear a mask, just because she is feared. She should know her own worth. The girl asked if the Crown Prince would be able to say the same when he saw what was hiding under her mask. The guy asked what she meant. Errol continued that she was the illegitimate daughter of a family with a hideous birthmark on her face. A monster princess. People judge by what they see. The people around her are unlikely to change their minds about her. It's best to leave it as it is. After all, that way she could avoid the pain. If the crown prince had seen her face, he wouldn't have said that. The girl said it wasn't easy to remove the mask, and they had no idea what she was going through. At this point, the girl caught herself thinking that she was overreacting. She bowed to the crown prince, said that she made a mistake, and apologized. After that, Errol took off from her seat and ran away. The girl didn't understand what was wrong with her, why she had said all that. His Highness may have been sincere. At some point, the girl remembered her sore ankle and stopped. Her feelings were stuck in the past. Her family treated her like a monster. People called her a devil. She didn't deserve to live. Should she resist her inevitable fate? Errol thought she should be alone. From the back came Ethan's voice. He asked if the girl was okay. The commander suggested that it must be hard for her to move around with her injury and offered to help her. The girl replied that there was no need to worry. The guy emphatically offered to lean on him and said he would help her walk. Errol thanked Ethan. She wondered if she would make him uncomfortable. Why did he care, even after she had been rude to the crown prince? The boy interrupted her thoughts by asking to be called by his first name. He said he clearly realized that even with all her wounds, she was still the most sincere and determined person he had ever met. He's interested in her true thoughts. So he asked to be called Ethan. The commander suggests that Errol be friends. Ethan said that he sees her clearly and distinctly as she is. The girl agreed. The next day, the girl could not forget what happened last night. A maid came into the room and warned the lady that she had a guest. It was Frieza Brixia, the daughter of a family in Brixia. Quiet and modest, unlike her relatives. While Arturina and Brixtus bullied Errol, she watched those taunts. What she needed. Frieza said she heard that her father had treated the girl at the banquet inappropriately and asked if her sister was all right. Errol replied that she knew how to take care of herself, and it wasn't her first time. Frieza apologized, saying that she was delayed by some business and she didn't think that this would happen. The girl handed a small gift to Errol. She said it was just in case, so her sister would use it if needed. Frieza went on to say that she only came to give it to her. Now she was leaving and hoped that Errol would get better. Errol had no idea what this was all about. Oh well, we need to put her plan into action. Duke Alden was stomping a flyer with his foot in a rage that read, "Cruel Duke Brixia." He turned to the maid and asked where Errol was, to which the girl answered him that the Duchess had left a short time ago. The Duke pushed the girl away and burst into Errol's room. On the desk, he found papers about a case where Alden was the subject of the investigation. Furious, the father once again asked the maid where the Duchess had gone. The commander told Errol that the Imperial military record books were kept here. The girl thanked him, saying that thanks to him, she had access to the data she needed. The guy continued that there were many documents of national importance here, so he needed to accompany her. He asked the girl not to be shy and to contact him if necessary. Ethan asked what she was looking for, to which the girl replied that she wanted to check the transaction history of the Brixia family for the last 10 years. If there turned out to be a large gap in it, then it was most likely that was the period when the shenanigans were taking place. The commander said that it should have been checked by the person in charge, and if there were any discrepancies, it would have been reported immediately. Errol assumed there was a fake ledger involved. Given the quantities of military equipment being shipped in, it wouldn't be hard to fake it. That's just a guess, though. After all, it was her father who made all the deals, so she herself would never have been able to detect the discrepancy or find any evidence. But things are different now, thanks to trusted sources. At this point, the girl noticed the discrepancy and notified the commander about it. The prices of the armor differed. Even the materials were different from those of her design. The same was true for the shoes. The commander wondered why the managers were not aware of this. Errol continued that she was sure that beyond that, even if they had noticed, they would have been afraid to dig into the Brixia family. The data on the military equipment supplied by her family is not accurate. There is a possibility that one of the middle management had already tried to investigate, but left it on someone's orders. Someone had bribed the high command. Ethan agreed with the girl. Fortunately, she had all the original blueprints of what the Brixia family had been supplying for the last 10 years. If they studied each one, they would be able to determine what the machinations were. At that moment, Errol's father burst into the archives. He started yelling, asking how dare she do this to him. and flirting with this Belstein. The Duke ordered the girl to come over. Ethan stood up for Errol and said that he realized at the banquet that the Duke was exploiting his daughter. Alden replied that it was their family business. He's talking to his daughter, and who is the commander to interfere anyway? The guy wanted to stand up for the girl again, but she asked him not to interfere, because just like her father said, it's their family business. She gave Alden 10 minutes and asked him to end this discussion quickly, because she had more important things to do. Her father then raised his hand at her, accusing her of not appreciating what she had, being rude and snooping around behind his back. He grabbed the girl by the hair and said he had had enough. How dare she humiliate her own father? The Duke told her to mind her place as well, calling her the illegitimate daughter of the Brixia family. He dismissed the girl, ordering her to mind her own business, and if she wasn't sick of living yet, ordered it all to stop. The girl asked if he was done because he still had 5 minutes left. The father, in a rage, wanted to hit Errol one more time, but outside the door heard the voices of 2 guys who were passing by. That stopped the man. The girl rose to her feet and said that if the Duke had struck one more time, could have properly demonstrated to everyone the method of discipline in the Brixia family. What a pity she missed the chance to be on the front page of the weekly magazines. Her father declared that his daughter had changed and was nothing like her past self. He grabbed her arm and asked her why she was rebelling. What did she have to gain from the collapse of the Brixia family? What the hell is she thinking? Maybe it's because of Belstein. Now he's figured it out. At the banquet, they'd been as close as a couple. Herzogna could understand what he saw in her and declared that Belstein had disgusting taste. In that case, her father suggested she marry the commander. She would be of no use to him anyway, but at least she would be a servant in his family. Errol called her father a madman, to which he replied that she was crazy, losing her head to a man who's no match for her, just like her mother. The Duke told his daughter to be obedient if she didn't want to end up like her. After that, Errol rose to her feet, turned around and walked away. Errol walked up to Ethan and apologized for being late. The guy asked if everything was okay and wondered what happened since her cheek was flushed. The girl said not to worry, as it would soon go away on its own. The commander insisted that they go to his room. There he took out an ointment and said that it was extremely effective and should help. The guy went on to say that at first he doubted the girl would go against her father. After all, it's her family. But now realizes he was wrong. He said he wouldn't ask too many questions, but asked her to let him know if she needed help. Errol thanked Ethan. The guy continued that he would be happy to help her no matter what kind of help she needed. Errol asked if the commander was doing her a favor, to which he replied in the negative. The girl offered to get back to business. After examining each account book, many discrepancies pop up. In this way, it would be possible to reduce the army's expenses. By getting rid of these hindrances, the empire would strengthen its position. Errol said that she would help Ethan, whereupon the boy asked what she would get out of it. After all, she is still part of the Brixia family. She'll probably be executed too. The Duchess replied that she's not afraid of that. Anyway, she has a plan. She asked Ethan for protection. Yes, even if it's just her feelings, she trusts the commander. Even when her own family turned their backs on her, he has helped her many times already. She feels safe next to him. The guy asked if she would leave her manor when the situation escalates, to which the girl replied positively. After saying that, they agreed. Errol said that she was looking forward to working with the commander, to which the Aitan reciprocated. He said he would do anything to protect her. They agreed that they would review key parts of the ledger together. They can't act rashly. They would take it one step at a time. The bird watching the girl flew to Shevin. He praised Errol, saying she's doing great and they'll see each other soon. Pretending to be interested in other people is annoying, but there's no avoiding it for the captain. To survive in aristocratic society, you have to be sensitive to the feelings of those around you. So he surrounded himself with people that could speak for him and had nothing to do with him. That's the way it used to be, and what it was. Of course, he had heard of the Duchess in disguise. It annoyed him when Belfort spoke of her. But then, as strange as it was, as soon as he saw her, he felt a strange connection to her. What gave rise to that feeling? Errol fell asleep at work. The commander tucked her hair behind her ear, causing the girl to wake up. She apologized for falling asleep. The guy said it was okay. The girl was probably tired from all the work. Errol asked if the commander was having a hard time, to which he replied positively. Errol told him to rest because he was working while she was sleeping. Ethan replied that he was just organizing the documents a little. The girl looked at the stack of papers on the desk and saw that all the work was already done. The commander asked the girl if he could ask her a question. The reason she has come to the Imperial Palace is because of her nanny and the people she needs to put her plan into action. The man she is about to meet has the most influence of anyone serving in the Brixia family, and he is the most important first step in her plan. It was Count Jair Grieve, a vassal of the Duchy of Brixia. He asked what the girl was doing here, since it was early morning. She replied that she had come to greet him because he had been working all night long. Speaking of which, she didn't see his children here with him. The man replied that he probably had a lot of things to deal with. His children are taking care of errands and chores around the estate. Errol asked how long the Earl had been serving his father, to which the man replied that it had been 20 years and asked why the question. The girl replied that he must know her father well then. Grieve said that he knows what he's supposed to know and they don't have much of an understanding. Errol continued that, however, she's sure some things he definitely knows. The Duchess talked about Alden's complete incompetence. The man asked if she was checking up on him, to which the girl replied in the negative and said that she came to him not on the Duke's orders, but on a personal matter. More specifically, she has a proposition for him. Her father is a mediocrity, however. He does not recognize this. In time, his actions will lead to the downfall of the Brixia family, and everything will fall apart. Before that, she wants to make him one offer. The Duke replies that he understands what she means, but it won't be enough to destroy the Brixia family. Besides, he can't understand why she would try to destroy her own family. The girl replies that she's not a family member to them, just a tool. Besides, she is trying to protect all the vassals of the ducal house of Brixia. Will her father protect the Grieve family if necessary, especially when the Earl's sons are unable to leave the estate? Errol wondered if the Earl would join her, or if he would eventually fade away, remaining loyal to her father until the very end. How tired Errol was. The maid assumed that the mistress had had a long day and asked if everything had gone as she had planned. The Duchess replied that the Earl had been difficult to communicate with, but the result had been good. But it was not good either. She had managed to get 8 people on her side out of the 13 she needed. Earl Grieve has made a good impression on the other vassals. Alden's only concern is entertainment and dancing, so he suspects nothing. Her thoughts flowed over the maid's words. The girl notified her mistress that something had been delivered for her this morning. It was a package that did not bear the name of the sender. The maid said she assumed it was an anonymous package. Errol was surprised that someone had sent her a gift. The box contained a dress from the salon of Garrick O'Damon, one of the capital's most famous designers, a man who tops the trends with unconventional outfits. He makes a maximum of 4 or 5 sets a year, and everyone is eager to get their hands on one. The Duchess suggested that perhaps there was some mistake, and the salon had the wrong address. The maid replied that there could be no mistake, for the recipient's name was hers. Errol could not understand who had sent the dress. The maid informed her mistress that it was likely, as she knew, that a masquerade party would be held on the last day of the ball. His Highness had invited the Duchess. The girl thought that she had insulted His Highness yesterday, so she would have to accept his invitation. She thought that maybe it was Ethan who had sent the dress, but wasn't that too much? Open outfits are in fashion right now. This was the first time she had seen a dress with such a design. The maid said she thought the dress would fit the lady. It's so beautiful that all the people passing by will look at it. There was a time when Errol dreamed of beautiful dresses, but it's long gone. The dress is too provocative and out of place. She only planned to meet with the Crown Prince and apologize. It wasn't too much. Maybe borrow someone else's outfit. No, it's no good. There's nothing she can do about it. The Duchess asked the maid to prepare everything for tomorrow's masquerade, and this dress too. And so the day has come. Arturina may not have been able to get a dress from Garrick O'Damon, but His Highness would notice her without it. Dancing hand in hand with her face creased behind masks is so romantic. Frieza told her younger sister that she had no chance of marrying the Crown Prince. Arturina replied that 3 years ago Frieza was the flower of the ball, and this year she would be the flower and dance with the prince. Frieza thought that Arturina was becoming more and more like her father. She hoped her little sister remembered what her father had said about the Crown Prince. For heaven's sake, at least she hadn't done something out of line. Now that she thought about it, it seemed like Errol had spent the entire time in the room after that ball. She was worried about her sister, so she decided to check in and hoped everything was okay. Should she talk to Errol again? No, she shouldn't push her. At that moment, Errol walked into the hall. The people around admired her beauty. The Crown Prince began his speech by saying that he wasn't sure if everyone could fully enjoy the banquet since the anniversary of the founding of the empire was coming up. He hoped that everyone would work for the good of the empire. At this time, Errol thought that she felt so awkward in that dress and should put on a shawl. One should apologize to the Crown Prince and leave the banquet as soon as possible. The girl began to look for Ethan, since he was the one who had invited her. At that moment, a young man approached her and asked her to dance. At the same second, another one came to her, and they began to quarrel among themselves, who would ask my lady to dance. The girl asked them to forgive her as she was already expecting someone. The boys apologized and left. Errol thought that the best way out of the situation would be to refuse both of them. She assumed it was because they were aristocrats, but they had a good tongue. At this time, Estienne approached her and offered to dance with him. The guy said that this dress suited the girl very well, after which Errol asked if he had picked it out for her by chance. The Crown Prince answered that Ethan had chosen the dress, and he was just standing next to him for company. Ethan, however, had excellent taste. The guy continued that he thought the dark color would suit her better, but the white one looks perfect, and Errol looks great. The girl said that she was thinking about their last meeting and apologized for her rudeness. Estienne asked if she was still worried about what she had said to him that time. The Duchess replied that she shouldn't have revealed her true feelings in front of people she barely knows. Estienne said that it was more like he should apologize, because he shouldn't have thoughtlessly said whatever popped into his head. The guy said he finds them similar enough. Everyone only sees him as the Crown Prince of the Empire. They don't care what kind of person he really is. It's like her mask. Anyway, he's learned something from Errol. That's why he has something to say to her, too. It's good that she accepted his invitation. The Crown Prince apologized for what he said to her then. He continued that the Duchess had probably had enough practice on him, and it was time for her to have some real fun. The girl turned around and saw Ethan behind her. The commander asked if Errol's dress was to her liking. The girl embarrassedly asked if she looked good, to which the guy replied that it was even better than he could have imagined. The commander said it was the first time he was seeing this dress in person. The color was chosen by him, and the design was picked up by Estienne. Errol realized why she thought it was too unusual. The girl told the commander that she remembered him saying he could see the confidence in her eyes, whether that was still the case. Ethan answered in the affirmative. Errol suggested that he might have just succumbed to the moment, the sense of novelty and curiosity. The commander replied that it could be so. In that case, they should start getting to know each other better. He suggested that they see each other more often from now on. The girl agreed. The members of the Brixia family were walking down the road. The Duchess resented that they had to ride in such a horrible carriage. Brixius mocked his sister for not being the flower of the ball. The mother yelled at her son, saying that he himself was flirting with all the women left and right. The boy replied that boldness beautifies a man. Arturina told her brother that he is ugly and will definitely not become more beautiful from this. Their arguments were stopped by the father, yelling at both of them. And this is a family of aristocrats. How much effort to protect this family in a past life was wasted. Errol is glad that now she sees the whole picture clearly and distinctly. From the back came Frieza. She said that she thought she saw someone similar to Errol in the ballroom. That girl was chosen to be the flower of the ball. She appeared so beautiful and confident that Frieza thought for a second that she wished she could be as brave as that girl. Errol replied that anyone could acquire that kind of courage if they put enough effort into it. Frieza said that it was almost impossible for someone like her. Errol replied that from the outside she seemed brave to her sister, but she was not. Frieza waved her off, saying she was talking nonsense and asked her to forget her words. Errol didn't understand why her sister was talking to her. Errol sat down on the lava and concluded that all these banquets were so tiring. Just then, the nanny came up to her. The girl was very happy to see her. The opera looked ill. The Duchess asked what had happened, to which the nanny replied that everything was all right. Errol asked if Opera was ill. The woman replied that the mistress was always worried about her and let her take care of herself now, because the bathroom was ready. The girl climbed into the bathroom and thought how nice it was to rest after all that running around. After all, Count Grieve had decided to join her. The Earl is a determined man, so she should expect a letter from him soon. Alden is already in her trap. She managed to get everything she needed during the ball without much obstacles. However, more reliable ways must be found to destroy the Brixia family. I wish she had an equally powerful family on her side. Does she have anyone in mind from those she's met? The only one that came to her mind was Ethan. The girl blushed and pushed the thoughts aside. At that moment, she remembered the nanny. After her vacation, she looked quite bad. Her body was already weakening. Nanny didn't die by falling down the stairs. By then, her body was completely exhausted. After her death, Errol's memories became confused. She had no one else to rely on. She would no longer bear Opera's death. After Errol returned to the room, she asked the nanny why she wouldn't quit and come home. Opera was surprised and asked if she had missteps since they had spent so many years together. The Duchess replied that she was not driving her away. After all, she had taken care of her for 20 years and deserved a vacation. If Oprah needed anything, she would immediately give the order. Nanny has lived for her family. Now it is time for her to live for herself. She wants Oprah to live a long life next to her beloved family so that she can be happy. Nanny replies that Madame has grown up to be a wonderful person. She can't believe that the tiny child who tugged her pendant with her little hands is telling her such a thing. Life is strange. She has nowhere to go back to, though, because her hometown is in the south, 2 days and 2 nights away. Many tourists visited the city to admire its beauty. That's how it used to be. There's nothing there anymore. Everyone's dead. Everyone who lived in the town, her whole family is dead. All that's left is a handful of ashes. The dark-haired girl was looking at papers with information about the southern region. She said, "This place smells like money." At Errol's request, Earl Grieve had inquired about the situation in the south. As she knew, the south was under the control of 2 families, Delphia and Bulgin. Perhaps because of the geographical location, but even after becoming part of the empire, these 2 families continued to show their authority by keeping each other at bay. However, over the past 20 years, both families had recruited soldiers in huge numbers. On top of that, they had procured weapons and armor from an unknown source to put pressure on each other. All because the Marquis of Boldzinski, who was in love with the Marquis of Delphi, was rejected by her. But even so, the volume of weapons and the unknown source of their origin are extremely suspicious. Errol thought that something was definitely wrong. After talking to her nanny, she turned to Earl Grieve for help. There was no way she would let Nanny die. Weapons and armor from an unknown source. What if it's illegal supplies from the Empire? It is likely a hidden transaction that was not recorded in the military ledgers. Corruption in the Brixia family, the death of the nanny, and the conflict in the southern region. Whether it's a mere coincidence. Be that as it may, any and all leads, even the smallest ones, are needed. Whether it would be enough. The girl walked into a bar that was very crowded. A waiter came up to her and told her that children didn't belong here. He told her to go away. She replied to him that he was a kid himself. The guy replied to her that for a minute he was 18 and an adult. The waiter told Errol, who pretended to be the guy, that she was dressed strangely. A dark-haired woman came up behind the waiter and asked why the hell he was being rude to a customer. The guy called her mom. The Duchess was surprised that the woman looked so young for his mother. The woman ordered the waiter to serve the customer. She apologized and introduced herself as Pibella. She said the place was too noisy and suggested they go downstairs to talk. Pibella apologized again and said it was quiet and the guy could take off his mask. The Duchess declined, saying it was fine. She asked if the Information Guild was located here. The woman said she thought he had come here for information, so she brought him here. So she wasn't wrong. Errol offered to cut to the chase, as she didn't have much time. She said she wanted information about the Marquis of Delphinius and Bulgin from the south. The conflict between them is of particular interest. Pibella asked why he was interested in it, but not hearing an answer, she went to the bookshelf to look for records about the south. She said, oddly enough, no one had ever asked for information about the conflict in the south in the last 20 years, but they'd sold it 6 times in the 2 months they'd been there. Errol asked if the woman could name her customer, to which she replied that it was a secret. In this business, customer trust was the most important thing. Pabella continued that in order for the guild to answer his question, he would have to pay. The woman requested 20 copper coins. After the Duchess paid, Pabella said that since the information about the southern conflict was not popular, it was somewhat outdated by about 5 years at this point. Errol asked if the guild could get more current data. The lady replied that she could get the most up-to-date information for an additional fee. Errol pulled out a baggie of money and said it was in advance. She continued that if the guild could get the most up-to-date information, she would pay them 10 gold, giving them a week of time. She got up from her seat and said that was the end of it. Pabella asked him to wait. After all, he had paid without even looking at the materials. Fresh data might not be too useful. Errol turned around and said that she was vitally interested in any information. Anyway, she left an advance payment, so she expects the information to match the payment. She turned around and asked if they could find someone. The Duchess asked to find her nanny's nephews. She would pay 10 gold pieces for each. Well, she's done all she wants to do for the day. It was time to go back before it got dark. At that moment, the girl was pushed by someone. She heard Ethan's voice asking if she was hurt. But what was Ethan Belstein doing here? The waiter asked Pabella if that kid seemed strange to her. The woman replied that he was a little strange, especially his eyes. They seemed to shine, even from under the mask. Pabella concluded that the guy was just baring his teeth at her not to work and started pinching his ears. The waiter asked him to stop, saying he was an adult. The woman said he was still a naughty little boy to her. The boy said he heard her asking about the conflict in the south. He said he heard her asking about the conflict in the south and asked her why. He said that there was no point in asking about that region, as there was nothing left. The woman told him to stop talking and go wipe the tables. The commander asked if Errol was injured. The girl didn't understand how they even ran into each other and thought she should hide her face. After all, she looked suspicious, but it's dark in here, so he wouldn't recognize her. The guy addressed her by name. The girl said he was mistaken. Then Captain Belfort comes running around the corner. He said the commander had to come back and report on the investigation. Ethan told him to wait, because he had run into someone. The captain replied that there was no one here. The boy turned around and saw that the man lying on the floor was gone. He got to his feet and told Belfry that tomorrow morning he would run 20 laps around the training field. The captain didn't understand why he had received such a punishment. 000. The meeting began. The crown prince was silent. Duke Orn Belstein, the head of the Belstein family, Ethan's father, said that 10 minutes had already passed since the meeting started. Maybe His Majesty would say something. He may be old, but he is still a busy man. If the crown prince continues to sit in silence, he will probably be the first to leave. Marquis Zervan Bladum, Belford's father, said that His Highness was gathering his thoughts. Orn asked if His Highness was not in touch with their sons. The Marquis interjected what that had to do with the matter now. Estienne said he had gathered them here today to discuss an important matter. It is about the conflict in the south. Everyone knows about the skirmish between the Delphia and Bulgin families. However, the main problem is that someone is supplying both of these families. During his investigation, he learns that some of the military officers have been stealing materials for personal use. If the smuggling did not go outside the empire, they would be able to solve the problem on their own, but otherwise the situation would worsen. Duke Orn said that this is exactly what is happening in the south right now. This conflict seems to be nothing more than a clash of personal interests, but that doesn't clash much with the huge amount of supplies. One lord has been carrying this burden for 20 years. Another councilman said that in the past, these lands were a small kingdom. So maybe the situation is the same as it was 400 years ago. Estienne replied that nowadays many residents in the southern provinces were buying their houses. The sprawl from those people who still live there is not profitable. With that being the case, one is left to conclude that they are being supplied with equipment by military officers and high-ranking nobles. Besides, what if it's not just a conflict of interest between two families anymore? Duke Orn assumed that they were stealing their weapons and selling them to DEI Savan through the south. The only reason DEI Savan had stopped the war 30 years ago was because the empire could no longer afford to properly supply its own army. Even if they tried to buy supplies from another country, they still couldn't succeed. DEI Savan was caught in a pincer for diplomatic reasons. The only country that can supply DEI Savan is the Osland Empire. It is nearly impossible to openly import weapons from enemy countries, but it is still feasible to do so under the guise of armed conflict and transporting armed weapons through the port. Another council member asked how they could have overlooked such a huge ship, to which Duke Orn replied that it was simple. Once the deal is finalized, the ship is disposed of, and all evidence will be buried at the bottom of the sea. Estion continued that if a nobleman from high society was involved, he would punish him regardless of his title or status. For treason. The fact that they didn't prevent the southern lords from relocating proves that they wanted to spread rumors from the south. Most likely, those savvy enough had already realized this. Duke Orn asked the Crown Prince what His Majesty thought about it. The fellow replied that for His Majesty's health left much to be desired, so he did not discuss the matter with him, to avoid complications. But he was sure that he would not like to see war break out again. The war 30 years ago took millions of lives. No one wants to see that horrible picture again. The Marquis asked why they shouldn't send someone to the south for a more detailed reconnaissance. The Crown Prince replied that it was part of his plans. The Duke and the Marquis began to argue over whose son would go to investigate. Estion replied that there was no one more suitable than the commander, and said that he would notify Ethan himself. The Crown Prince left the council. Ethan was opposed to taking Errol south with him. The Crown Prince insisted on it, saying that the Duchess would be just right for the job. The commander said it was impossible to predict when the unrest would rise again. It was unwise to take a girl who had never held a sword on a scouting mission. Estion replied that Ethan would protect her, but that was something a commander of the Imperial Guards could do. The boy replied that if they were surrounded, even he might not be able to handle it. The Crown Prince said that they got along well together, and besides, why did he think that he was the only one who would protect her? She might have to protect her from him too. In short, everything would be fine. Estion wished them a happy trip, or honeymoon. Errol was glad she'd found Alden's secret account book. The Duke wouldn't be at the manor for 3 days. Can't let a chance like this go to waste. Good thing she'd managed to find it, and it was nice not to see his face for a couple days at least. Brixtus came up behind her and asked her what she was doing in this room since her father wasn't here. The girl replied that she was just stopping by. The guy asked if she was afraid that he would tell her father everything. Errol asked what he wanted, to which the brother replied that his shoulders were stiff and a massage would be nice. The girl said that he had told her before not to touch him because she was a monster. Brixtus replied that he had before and asked if she would honor his request. Errol replied that she was glad to see that he was still the same, but asked him to keep pretending that she didn't exist like before. He grabbed Errol's hand. The girl pulled her hand out and yelled, and asked him if he was tired of getting on people's nerves. Her brother asked how dare she talk to him like that when he goes out of his way to be nice to her. He took a swing at her, but at that moment Ethan appeared behind his back and stopped his hand. The commander said that maybe if he broke Brixtus's wrist, he would start acting like a normal person. Brixtus didn't understand why Belstein was sticking up for the creep. The commander concluded that one wrist would not be enough. The girl told her brother to stop and not embarrass himself, to retain some of the dignity of an aristocrat. Errol led Ethan away. The girl said that he had already arrived, and this was the only room in the annex to the manor where no one would be able to overhear them. The guy started talking about how it might sound rude, but this room really did look like her room. He went on to say that he didn't mean anything bad by it. The room looks neat and organized, or rather like a reflection of her, especially the furniture and the shabby books. He said he was beginning to realize how hard she worked. The boy assumed that the Duchess was surprised to see him, though he had sent a letter to the Duke informing him of his visit. The Duke, however, was not at the manor. Errol replied that her father would be away for a few days. He had gone on vacation. The boy said that he was already going to cancel the visit, but there was almost no time, so he had no choice. Errol asked if nothing had happened. Ethan asked if she had any plans, and then said that he was being sent to the south to reconnoiter the situation. The girl thought about the fact that the Imperial Palace was also interested in the southern conflict. The commander continued that Belfort had been to the south several times before, and since the locals knew him by sight, he was not suitable for this mission. What was needed was someone with enough power to intervene if necessary. However, if he went alone, he might arouse suspicion. He tried to refuse, but Estion offered something. He said it would be fine as long as no suspicion was aroused. There's a seaport to the south. It's a very popular place where nobles like to honeymoon. Noble couples often go there on vacation. If he managed to go there with someone as a newlywed, it wouldn't raise suspicion. The girl asked if he meant her, to which the commander replied that he was very ashamed, but it was only an offer, and she had the right to refuse. All this must be very unexpected for her. She didn't have to. Errol didn't understand why he had chosen her. She doesn't wield a sword, nor mine. The only thing she knows how to do is use her head. Should she interfere? After all, she's not even sure if Alden is in any way involved in the conflict in the south. Ethan said the southern scenery is beautiful, so if she just wants to relax, this is a good opportunity. The girl thought that maybe if she saw everything with her own eyes, things would make more sense to her. She stood up and said that she had a condition. Someone must be found. A girl and a boy. They were probably missing. If he would help her find them, she would go with him. The commander said he couldn't guarantee they'd find them, but he'd do his best. He notified her that they were leaving in 2 days. Everything but the immediate transportation would be taken care of by the Imperial family. He asked her to take the necessities and they could depart. The journey might not be easy, but there were many things to see and try in the south. She could rest, and Ethan would take care of the work. The girl wasn't going to rest, after all. She was going there for her nanny. Errol replied to the guy that she would do her best to be a good fake wife to him. The girl was almost late. She arrived later than she had anticipated. She needed to arrive at the palace to transfer to another means of transportation. She tried to finish everything quickly, but she was distracted by her siblings. Speaking of which, what other means of transportation could there be than a carriage? He'd heard it wasn't easy to prepare. It was a magical portal. To use a portal requires a huge amount of resources and money. Only the high nobility could afford one, and they'd let her use it so easily. The crown prince said he had prepared everything to make their journey as comfortable as possible. He had to work the warlocks for 3 whole days to get them to agree to prepare the portal. He suggested that Errol must be pretty exhausted. She would finally be able to get some proper rest. He handed her a bag and told her she would need it. The girl asked what was in it. The guy replied that it was a potion that could change the color of her hair and eyes for 24 hours. That way, she could draw less attention to herself. There's enough for their entire journey. However, the potions are expensive, so he asked to use them wisely. The commander suggested they go into the portal together. They immediately arrived in their room in a flash. The boy said that since they were pretending to be newlyweds, they would have to share a room to avoid suspicion. Seeing the embarrassment on the girl's face, Ethan got up and said he would go and ask for another room. There was no need to pretend when they were alone. Better sleep in separate rooms tonight. The girl thought she only felt awkward because she had never shared a room with anyone before. It felt like she was kicking him out of here. So she immediately stopped the guy and told him that they could sleep in the same room. Whether they like it or not, they are here on business, so they should play their roles properly. The commander asked if it would make her uncomfortable, to which Errol replied that she trusted him. The girl said that the Ethan she knows will never compromise the rules of propriety. She doesn't want the mission to fail because of her. If you do something, you have to do it right. She was ready for that. The commander continued that since they were newlyweds, they would have to sleep in the same bed. Errol replied that there was nothing complicated about it and asked the guy to hurry up as they needed to practice. The Duchess asked what was on their agenda. The young man replied that they need to visit the largest southern city. It is under the administration of Earl Jackson Peter, and then they need to look into the port of Experia. The girl asked if that's where the goods exchange between the northern and southern trade routes takes place. The boy replied that it was. It was necessary to inquire at once about the local slave organization. They would be safe, so he asked the girl not to worry. One would not want to give false hopes, but there was a chance of finding out something about the people she was looking for. They would likely get all sorts of information during the investigation. One would have to be wary. Perhaps they would be able to find out something. Though he really hoped that those she was looking for were not in the harbor. The girl wanted to ask him something, but something stopped her. At this time in the Duchy of Brixia, Alden returned home. He asked where the monster had gone and why Errol didn't greet him. The children replied that the girl had gone south with Mr. Belstein. Alden was dumbfounded by this news. He did not understand what they were up to. Did she recognize something? This scum is trying to destroy him. We can't just sit around and do something before she finds out. He had the butler prepare everything for the telegram. Errol didn't understand why the crown prince had told them not to stand out, but had stuffed them with such eye-catching clothes. The commander asked if the duchess was ready. Then he saw her in a very revealing dress. The girl said it was the simplest clothes she could find. The guy said that the dress suited her well, but it would attract attention. Ethan offered to buy new clothes. In big cities, you don't want to spend a lot of money to avoid attracting attention. So it was best to shop while they were here. Errol agreed. They agreed that they should go shopping now. There were a lot of people at the market. Ethan said he had heard that there was a festival going on. According to legend, the festival is held to celebrate the peace between two small kingdoms. The locals wear masks to hide their origins, so they can enjoy the festivities to the fullest. The girl thought that everyone was having a good time and that no one would find her mask strange. She couldn't believe she could fit in with the crowd. The commander suggested going into some store. The girl agreed. She didn't know anything about fashion because she never bought her own clothes, but it would be nice to do so for once. The young people were greeted by a girl in a rather revealing outfit. She called the store the best fashion salon in southern Vixil. She assumed that her visitors were from far away since they were so surprised. The girl explained that it was traditional southern clothing. Ethan said they were here for new clothes and asked for something practical, since they like to walk around. So it's best if the clothes are comfortable. The girl brought many floral dresses that would be suitable for the summer season. She said that Errol with her lovely and silver hair would be perfect with blue fabric. She can also recommend darker colors like black, although black wouldn't look good on the beach, so maybe yellow would be better. The weather is great right now, so yellow would be perfect. Errol was dumbfounded by the huge selection. Seeing her confused face, the commander said he would buy all the dresses. The guy concluded that people here are so ardent, they don't even hold back in public. Even their love is ardent. The loader told the commander that in the south, this is the order of the day. It happens that the feelings of couples who come here, which have cooled down, flare up again with even greater vigor. He assumed they were newlyweds, so their feelings must be as hot as ever. After loading their things, he wished them to enjoy the festival. Ethan thought of the newlyweds' love, Errol and him. No, he shouldn't think about that. At that moment, he was distracted by the girl, telling him that the man had said that couples here express their feelings through touch. And from the looks of it, sitting on the husband's lap was quite normal. The guy agreed. She asked if they should practice this. She suggested that the fact that they weren't local didn't matter. In any case, it would be strange for a married couple to act so awkward. So, she thought, she'd have to practice. The girl asked the commander how he felt about the idea. The guy thought it was a good one. Errol sat on his lap. At that moment, the wagon hit a rock and wobbled. The girl couldn't hold on and fell down. Ethan rushed after her. In a second, she was already lying on the lava, and he was leaning over her.